What is going on, family? How is everybody doing? Please get your libations, get whatever you need to get through the show. Um, One of the things that I want to do, let's not forget to hit that like button. Hit that like button. Cost you nothing to hit that like button. As we start off the show, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. That was the most tragic thing that I have ever seen in a long, long time. So rest in peace, father, child. But we life life ain't promised. You better make it mean something. Life is not promised. So what will your legacy be? So please, 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 family, we're going to get into some politics. We're not going to stay here in that moment. We're going to get to some politics. Please do not forget Thursday, we're finally getting to it. They were her property. They were her property. We're going to read that. We're going to have the conversation. I'll probably try to kind of like take it down in terms of and have more discussions with callers instead of taking so much time to like have my piece. I'll probably try to like have 30 to 45 minutes to have my piece instead of an hour and then talk to everybody. So we'll kind of do it like that. We'll play it by ear. We'll see what works. Though I can be long-winded. I'm not trying to be long-winded tonight either. So we'll play it by ear. But I wanted to make sure that everybody knows this week. I don't want you to have read the book and you miss it. So really and truthfully, let's make sure we do that. Please hit the like if you have not hit the like. Please, if you want to donate, you can go to donatebrown.com, patreon.com/WatCarnell. Do whatever you want to do. You can go subscribe to brown.com. Subscribe to brown.com if you want to. You can do that as well. Also, do not forget, you can go to patreon.com/WatCarnell. I said that. I just said it already. Whatever. Just don't forget, you can also go to subscribe to Brown. I keep saying that. Give me your email address. I promise I will not abuse your email address. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you, I will not. I rarely even send anything out. I just like to have it because you never know what goes down in these YouTube streets. So listen, family. And hit that bell too. Hit that bell and make sure you're getting notifications because I keep hearing from a bunch of people that you're not necessarily getting notifications. So please just check on that for me and make sure you are set to get it. It hasn't unsubscribed you or make sure you don't get notifications. Please just check on that for me. I would appreciate it. Something happened. Something happened. And I want to just intro this in a certain way because I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Joe Rogan. He was a comedian, I think. And then I remember him from Fear Factor. Well, there's people eating bugs and stuff. You remember that? I think he was a host of that show. And now he has, I think it's the most popular podcast like on iTunes in terms of downloads, right? And he endorsed that. Who you gonna vote for? I'm voting for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders accepted the endorsement and pushed it out, published it. And so everybody's talking about whether or not he should have accepted it because Joe Rogan has some problematic things in his background in terms of a whole lot of stuff. But my focus, because we got to be focused on the focus, is race. Right? That is our focus in terms of how has that been problematic. And I think this whole thing that we're looking at right now is a lens through which to understand whiteness and what whiteness gets to do and get away with without responsibility. Now, I'm not going to say, let's just say this off top. I'm not having a discussion about whether Joe Rogan individually is a racist or doesn't like black people, because one of the things that we have to get past is this idea that like racism is about spouting the N-word, although he did, or that racism is about necessarily only you must hate black people. Or you must harbor some type of ill will. Nah, it can be like, you know what happened to black people and you don't want to do anything to correct it. And you stay in the moment. Let me just tell you one thing to be careful about when I say stay in the moment. You have to be very careful about one thing. Even when I see a lot of writers writing, a lot of the writing is geared towards, well, should there be? Should there be reparations? That is the question. And who should get it? These are all questions that are being asked of Democrats right now. We have a lot of questions. Be very wary of people that try to keep us in the question. because the question has been answered. We know that a debt is owed, right? So the question now has been answered. The only thing that we have to figure out is what is the implementation. So be very wary that people want to keep you questioning and guessing and making you feel like we just haven't reached a conclusion. We're trying, we're real hard. Be very wary of that. So when we get back to Sanders, you see the endorsement. And one of the things that I didn't know at first was that Sanders courted the endorsement as well as a bunch of other people. So this isn't just Bernie Sanders. This is kind of what, Antonio Moore put up a bunch of charts a while back about the white vote has been running to the right and Democrats keep chasing it and ignoring the ADOS electorate and the black electorate as a whole. And that's what's happening. So when you see Joe Rogan say, I think I'm going to vote for Bernie, and you see him, regardless of what has been said. Now let's go to a little bit about what's been said, because there a bunch of people put up some stuff. I just want to give you a bit of background, because not everybody knows who Joe Rogan is, and I don't expect everybody to. I have listened to a few podcasts before, just because I think it's my responsibility to know who people are in the sphere who invite people on and who talk politics. But somebody put up, Bernie Sanders just recently received Joe Rogan's endorsement. He is a former Fear Factor host using the N-word on multiple occasions. He's just fixated with being able to say it. I always question white people who are just fixated with, I want to be able to say the N-word right now. What's wrong with you? Watch Joe Rogan, who endorsed Bernie, compare black people to the Planet of the Apes. Bernie's campaign sure attracts openly racist jerks. Now, here's the thing I will say. Pull it all the way back, though. Joe Rogan also did an interview. Now, he's talked to, I think, Dr. Cornel West. He's talked to Malcolm Gladwell. He's talked to Matt Taibbi. I stay up on these things. And during the interview with Malcolm Gladwell, they talked about Sandra Bland, right, who died in the jail cell in Texas after an officer pulled her over for nothing, which is like an improper lane change. And they went through the whole thing of, Joe Rogan and Malcolm Gladwell. And actually, Joe Rogan was on the side of Sandra Bland. It seemed to me, in terms of the interview, more than Malcolm Gladwell was, in the sense that Joe Rogan saw that the officer was behaving badly and was seeking out control for the sake of control. A lot more than Malcolm Gladwell was able to see that, or maybe that was something that he saw or whatever. But it seemed like Joe Rogan was like, no, he was just overstepping and he was just messing with her. There was no reason that he didn't fear this woman. And Malcolm Gladwell was like, well, he came back to the driver's side as opposed to the passenger side, so he did have some kind of inclination that she was moving furtively or something. And it was just, Joe Rogan was like, no, I don't think that's it. So I'm not going to do that black and white. Oh, this is good, this is bad. Because I understand something else about this whole debate that's going on. And we're going to get back to Joe Rogan. Just stay with me. Part of what's going on with this whole debate is a lot of these Democrats who are talking about, oh, how awful that is. You all are the reason that Joe Rogan even exists as some kind of thought leader. Because by what right? He's a person who brings thought leaders onto his show. But how is he a thought leader? How have we made him matter except for the fact that he is a reflection of white maleness and ordinariness back to ordinary white men? Not a lot of women on the show, not a lot of black people on the show. So who made him matter is the bigger question. But I'm not going, when you look at that interview, it was a very balanced interview, a very balanced conversation between him and Malcolm Gladwell. But there's something, let me just say this, there's something very slick that goes on in this space of shock jockeying and podcasting or whatever you want to call it. People tend to kind of play around the edges of free speech. So here's what I mean. Someone will say, well, I talked to Alex Jones, because Alex Jones, we also talked to Alex Jones, the infamous conspiracy theorist. And you'll say, oh my God, it's awful that Joe Rogan talked to Alex Jones. And then he'll say, well, I talked to Alex Jones for the same reason I talked to the guy from the Proud Boys who started Vice. I told him what they were doing. I told him it wasn't no good what they was doing. I tried to talk to him. I was trying to talk some sense into him. And I think these conversations should be engaged. That's what they'll say. It's like they get, you get granted permission, or you grant yourself permission to dance around the edges of conspiratorial thinking. So here's the thing. So here's what'll happen. Let me just break it down for you. What you will do, you will talk to Malcolm Gladwell and you will talk about how awful it is what happened to Sandra Bland. But on the other side of the table, you are speaking to people who are helping create the environment for sort of racist acts to happen. So on this hand, you'll say, well, this is awful what happened. On this hand, you will be kind of legitimizing those kinds of people. Because how many of y'all remember when Alex Jones accused, I couldn't even find it on the net anymore. I guess it's been scrubbed. But he said on the show way back when, during the height of Black Lives Matter or whatever, that Black Lives Matter was planning some kind of thing or planning violence, something like that. And it's just, how do you get to play with somebody who does that and say, well, I know him and we both been kind of beat up and we both been hammered by the same people, we both go through things. Like that's nothing that could happen to us as ADOS. That's nothing that we could do in terms of anything. I mean, remember, and I remember criticizing Mark Lamar Hill for what he said in terms of Palestine. But do you remember, like, he got kicked off? It was just he got kicked off CNN. It's just, he's just gone. And I don't see a space like to do a podcast after that gets millions of downloads like Joe Rogan. The opportunity for some kind of, let's just have free speech and we're going to talk to everybody. And how has that worked out? This whole idea, because I'm going to read something from Jacobin in a minute. Jacobin, whichever one it is. But how has that worked out? The idea that, we get through to people like Alex Jones or whoever else, or the Proud Boys or whoever else you want to talk to. How has that idea, how has that worked out? This idea that we're going to talk to all we got to do is talk to the people who putting out lies and conspiracy theories and races. And the guy from Vice, he was just being a provocateur anyway. He ain't really mean no harm. You understand? So you get to dance around the edges of this just because you project a sort of ordinary whiteness. That's really not profound. The biggest thing that Joe Rogan does is that he gives people the space to kind of finish their sentences and like really try to understand the people that he brings onto his show, rather than a lot of other people who kind of engage in this weird kind of, I'm just going to pepper you with questions. I'm not going to bring any of my personal experience to it. I'm not going to be really conversational. I'm going to just be really elite. And so that's why the mainstream media also bears responsibility in what we see happening. Because they have narrowed the window in terms of what can be said so much that you create a whole nother market for a whole bunch of other people to say some good stuff and some stuff that's really problematic, but it's all really, really white. And like it's all kind of excused away. Like Alex Jones, he's really just a great guy. You just don't understand him. He just, he makes some mistakes. And I tried to tell him about himself. Since when is that a pass for anybody? Certainly not a pass for me, certainly not a pass for you. So let me just get back. So he got the endorsement, and they've all been apparently shopping for the endorsement. And you had a lot of people, come out there and, the mainstream. Ezra Klein, a lot of them. Bernie's strength is that he can win over some voters who are skeptical of Democrats, like Joe Rogan. If you think getting Trump out of office is actually important, that's a good thing. And he should lean into it. He should lean into it. Now, notice that we have, there's not any kind of conversation in terms of how that's going to impact us and how we should feel about it and what we should lean into. So do you all remember, we did a whole show a while back about this fellow right here. And because he did an article about reparations. The time we came out and started talking about reparations, he's the co-founder, editor of Jacobin or whatever. He came out, said what he said immediately. Reparations not the way to go. Didn't take time. He didn't say, well, we have to do this. He didn't say, well, we need to really consider reparations because we need the black vote. And it is old, and we're going to have to figure out a way to wrap it into what we're doing. And we're going to have to, the people, he didn't say like, well, the people who are opposed to reparations, we're going to have to do activism to get them on point. I want to remind you, because I'm going to show you what he said. Just a couple of the things. I'm not going to go into the whole article. I'm going to show you what he said. Then I'm going to show you what was written in his magazine. And I'm going to show you how it's different. See, because we don't get we have to, even though we're the mule, we have historically been the mules of the Democratic Party. We don't get we have to really do what's right by black people. We have to really do what's right by ADOS. ADOS in terms of reparations, and a black agenda in terms of black people. We have to really do that. We didn't get any of that. When we were talking about reparations, he shut us down immediately. But he ain't shut Joe Rogan down. See, that's the tie that binds. Before we get into it, that's the tie that binds, isn't it? The tie that binds in terms of whiteness, and people get to access whiteness, right? The tie that binds is, yeah, y'all gonna do whatever it takes to chase the white vote. Like, it don't matter. And so this is what you told us about reparations. You made up all kinds of excuses, and we're gonna go to what you said about Rogan. Or consider this dilemma. Money for reparations will come from government expenditure, of which around half is funded by income tax. Could we be in a situation where we're asking, say, a black Jamaican descendant of slaves or a poor Latino immigrant to help fund a program that they can't benefit from? Reparations wouldn't be such a 0-point game, but it would be a hard to shake the perception. Now that's what you said. That's what you said about reparations, because people wouldn't get on board. Understand that the job that you have as a person at a magazine, or who runs a magazine, is to help people get on board of stuff you believe in, not to talk about how it's not possible. There are a lot of people who are not on board with a lot of leftist ideas, but you don't sit around and talk about how it's not possible. You get on board with convincing people that it should happen. Don't think we don't see it. Don't think we don't see you. So here's the second thing that he said. Well, one of the things. When polled, most black Americans agree that our society should do whatever is necessary to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed, and that government should spend money to tackle poverty. The vanguard of the American social democracy, they're joined now by millions of others, commanding majorities that support Medicare for all, a jobs guarantee, free public education, blah, 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 blah. So what you're basically saying is reparations for white people. That's what we're gonna give the money that we should have been paid. We should have been paid ADOS. We're gonna give that money away to everybody. So I owe you money, right? I owe you money, but let me just tell you what I'm gonna do. I owe you $100. See, and a bunch of people in this room that might be mad at me if I just give you your $100 back. So I'm gonna go and give everybody $1, but you gonna get $1 too. Ain't that all right? Ain't that good? You get $1. Well, wait a minute, you owe me the whole 100. But yeah, if I give you the whole 100, everybody in this room gonna be mad at me except you. I gotta keep everybody happy, so I'm gonna give everybody $1, and you get $1 too. Well, now I'm just equal to everybody, but the debt was 100. But you got $1. Why are you mad about $1? You got your $1. In what world does that make sense? But that's what's told to us. When we start talking about reparations, when we start talking about the debt, when we start talking about what is owed, people come down with the hammer quick. No, we said no, we're not going that way. We're moving on. Y'all remember Bernie went on the Breakfast Club initially. He eventually tried to come around HR4. Remember, what is reparations? What would it look like? Would it be a cash payment? I don't know. You tell me. Well, I'm flabbergasted. I'm clueless. But let's not talk about race, because you, like Joe Rogan, y'all don't really want to talk about or have any kind of real understanding of race that exists. But you all want to anchor yourself in the mythology of America, where, as long as we just change government or whatever, race doesn't matter. Or with Joe Rogan, as long as you work hard, race doesn't matter. Or Joe Rogan will say, I worked hard. I used to work comedy clubs. What are you talking about? We all worked hard. Let me just say this, white America. Can I say one thing to you? Just because you had it hard, or you worked hard, or your life wasn't no crystal stair, don't mean that racism doesn't exist. Your hard life, if you grew up in a trailer park or whatever, your hard life doesn't erase racism because you had it rough. Constant black poverty is not white poverty. Nobody's saying that you wasn't poor. That don't make a hill of beans about the erasure of racism in America. So just stop there. I had it rough. I had to do comedy clubs. I remember one time I had one shoe. That doesn't change anything. And it's anecdotal. It's just your specific life. It's not the life of whiteness or everybody else who accesses whiteness. That's your specific life. Don't mean a hill of beans. But let's just go back. I just read you what the editor of one of the founders, whatever he is, we went through that one day, of Jacobin, whatever, said about reparations. You torpedoed it immediately. That's not the way to go. You told us that that's not the way to go. ADOS. But here's what you had to say about the whole, something, not you, but somebody in your paper, and it was on behalf of y'all. I mean, it was published over there about, and I saw your Twitter, and you said, you echoed the statement that, the Joe Rogan endorsement is wonderful, or whatever. It's very interesting how you chase, even on the left, it's not just liberal Democrats. Even on the left, y'all are just chasing that white vote. You don't care you don't care where it takes you. All you see is all them downloads. So here's what you said. I just want to just make this case. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see. While Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, and Andrew Yang have appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan has said that Warren, Buttigieg, and Biden have all tried and failed to get booked on the show. It's obviously why the YouTube page for the Joe Rogan Experience has 7.29 million subscribers, and even more people download the podcast every month. Numbers. Because see, we understand what you're hearing. Like, some of the people, we're not saying all of them, I'm not even saying Joe Rogan is racist. I don't know the man. I just know that some of the stuff is really problematic. But I don't think Democrats care how problematic it is, because in their mind, they're just like, well, even if some of them even if people are, kind of racist vote too. So let's go to the second quote. Hold on one second. Better yet, this legion of fans isn't made up of progressive activists who are already planning to vote in the Democratic primaries. Rogan spends far more time talking about drugs and movies and mixed martial arts than he does about the presidential election. Many of his fans are relatively apolitical, but some may be moved to register to vote by Rogan's ode to the integrity of Bernie Sanders, or his passionate defense of Medicare for all. You know what I would be interested to find out? You know what I would want to know? Honestly, I would want to know, Bernie Sanders has black surrogates, right? I would want to know, did he talk to Nina? Did he talk to Killer Mike? Did he talk to anybody and say, and just run it past you, is this going to hurt me in the black community? Is this going to be a problem? Did he even consider, or was it just like everybody else? This man has subscribers. He has a lot of subscribers. We just gonna go get him. We just gotta win. We gotta win at the cost of winning. We don't care. We just gonna win. I would just like to know. I mean, that was signal to me something in terms of like, did we factor in at all in terms of any of this? It's all very interesting. Let me go to the next quote, though. Rogan's friendly relationships with these right-wing thinkers, also with his own reactionary views, has given many casual observers the impression that he's a coherent right-winger. In reality, he's about where many persuadable Americans are, which is to say that while he doesn't think about politics all the time, he likes and dislikes some individual politicians. He has knee-jerk reactionary positions on some issues, and he finds egalitarian proposals for universal programs deeply appealing. Let's go to the next one really quick. We don't object to platforming such people for the purpose of pushing back against views, but Rogan has acted as an uncritical sounding board for them. Though there was a hilarious moment where he got at a libertarian. Who cares? Who cares, Jacqueline? This is the real Joe Rogan show, a total mix of the apolitical and the political, the reactionary and the progressive. He's, in a sense, representative of the political zigzags of most ordinary people who don't think and tweet about politics all the time. Now here's the thing. I think regarding people not being in a box, I think that's true. I think most people aren't in a box, right? But we live in this world, like, understand how we're boxed in as ADOS. Understand that we can't even have a conversation about what income, what immigration level should be without being called xenophobic. Like, you can have any conversation, but the dude can do everything. Like, the same left that will call us xenophobic all day long. Like, understand this same left, because we said, we might be, when you look at some of the studies, black people, especially ADOS people, when you have immigrants who are low skilled or displaced in the workforce, when you say this might be a problem, look at this, we get called xenophobic and all kind of stuff. Oh my God, y'all are awful. You just hate him. No, we don't. We never said anything like that. What are you talking about? Oh, yes, you do. You just awful. You just awful. Now, the same left that has been calling us awful and xenophobic for how long? At least a year and a half, or at least year and a half, 2 years at least, has been calling us xenophobic, is going to now co-sign Joe Rogan and all of, like, the kind of right-wing sympathies that he has. If that doesn't speak to the power of whiteness, I don't know what does. If that doesn't speak to the power of freedom, the freedom that whiteness gives you, I don't know what does. To be a free thinker and do whatever you want to do, regardless of who gets hurt, regardless of who has a problem with it, regardless of, like, regardless of how oppressive it is, to kind of engage in those thoughts and legitimize certain people, you get to move around and do whatever. You still get to, like, people still seek your endorsement. And we don't do it just for entertainments and giggles. We do it for real politics here at ADOS. That's what we're doing it for. You're doing it just for content. And we get shunned on the internet while the left is seeking out your endorsement. That's the power of whiteness. You can be you can reflect back to white men, the most ordinary white man in the world. Not really deep at all. But you give people and you give people a chance to answer their questions. People come on to your show, and all of a sudden you become a thought leader. And nobody really realizes, no, the thought leaders, you connect people to the thought. You're not the thought leader. How do we have a world where you matter like that? How do we not see what this means? And how we've been bottled up. Like, we've been fighting that for how long? This man's been talking about, well, I told Gavin them not to be with them Proud Boys, and he said it was just a joke. He didn't even mean it like that. And then he disses himself from the Proud Boys, and like it's too serious. And how many times have we heard that? It ain't that serious. And so you're in a position where a lot of people end up going on his show because he has the eyeballs. because he gets to do whatever he wants to do. You can't do that. They'll knock you off Twitter. I mean, with all kind of, but let me just go to a couple more quotes and we'll come back to it. I just want to show you how this leftist, this how they responded to reparations as opposed to, but we're going to go get your Rogan's endorsement. So let's just go to a couple more quotes and we'll come out of it. A few more. It's a few more. And we'll come out of it and have the discussion. But even on the narrow question of shock jocks with the history of making problematic comments, some memories are very short. Hillary Clinton went on the Howard Stern show and basked in Howard's praise of her record and happily agreed with his criticisms of Bernie Sanders last month. There wasn't a ripple of controversy about it from the crowd. And if we're going to be realistic about this, it's hard to imagine that there would have been much controversy if Joe Rogan said, I think I'm probably going to vote for Elizabeth Warren because she's so smart. She has a plan for everything. I think there probably would have. Who wrote this? Let me go to the next one. It's people just so goofy. As grating as it is that Bernie is being bombarded with outrage for being endorsed by a podcast host with a mishmash of views while hardly anyone... Look, stop right there for a second, though. With a mishmash of views. What does it matter if you have a mishmash of views if some of your views are horrible? Like, if you have a mix, people are like, well, it's okay. It really is okay to have a mishmash of stuff. But, like, if some of your views or some of the people you hang around are horrible, are we able to say that? Are we able to have that conversation? How not? How can you have a country even if you're not able to have that kind of conversation? How? I don't understand what kind of country we are if we're not based on anything. If there are not some core values that we have in common. Doesn't make much sense. It doesn't make much sense. So let me bring this up. Let me bring the Biden's failure. Well, they start talking about Biden. Let me go through this really, really quickly. Every successful presidential campaign is by definition a coalition of voters who don't agree with each other about everything but are willing to get behind a given candidate and their platform. The question is whether we're so allergic to having people in our coalition who haven't yet reached progressive positions on every issue that we're willing to risk losing what is arguably the most important election of our lifetimes. Well, y'all didn't care about it when it was us, though. You didn't care when it was us. Like what? I mean, what? We are the mules of the Democratic Party. Didn't anybody say like what happens if we're about to lose people? If we're about to lose people, what happens if we're about to lose black people? I don't think we understand how much we haven't mattered in this party. And I only have a couple more quotes to go. Which is more important? Which is more important? Stigmatizing Rogan for his bad views by refusing to make any welcoming gestures when he expresses interest in joining our coalition, or shutting down Donald Trump's concentration camps? Changing personal attitudes is important. It's also a subtle and complicated project. We can at least start by bringing people together in a shared political project to elect a candidate who is committed to a whole list of progressive goals ranging from Medicare for all, protect trans people, discrimination, blah, 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 blah. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff they talking about. We can at least we got to do what we got to do. We got to try to get that. We got to get that vote. We don't got no other choice. People who might be a little bit racist, that might have a lot of political views that conflict with ours, we would rather chase them down than to even add reparations to the leftist platform. Because that people don't want to get behind reparations, but I don't care if he talked to Alex Jones, who's a known conspiracy theorist, and I don't care about none of that. So this just goes to show you, like, there are no values. And this leads to the final point. And I'm so happy. This was a tiresome little article, but it gave a good kind of counterbalance, and it gave a good to show you who we are and how we're thought of amongst the left versus how everybody else is thought of. So, but it's so stupid. And this leads us to the final point. To the extent that we can change people's personal views, what's the best strategy? What's the best strategy to do us? Are we likely to reach them if we start by drawing a sharp line between us and them? Demanding that they repent their bad views before we'll have anything to do with them? We don't think so. Oh. Is them Joe Rogan trolls in the thing? That was odd. Anyway, I think sometimes you have to interpret what a thing means, or what a few things mean. And I think, loyalty is supposed to be rewarded. And that's in anything, not just a party. That's in anything. But what happens is Democrats, on the other hand, they reward people who are running away, or who might run away, or who they're not sure are in the camp. Instead of, like, even if you had, like, instead of chasing this man down, like, he's got numbers. No, instead of, just make a case. Make your case. Don't just run down make your case. And you have a job. Everybody says, well, we just need these. And you can work on influencing those people without anybody else. But the problem is, a lot of your stuff hasn't made sense. And so what you've been doing, instead of having a certain set of values, you've been kind of throwing money at the wall. Now, you have a bunch of money to throw at the wall when it comes to Medicare for all, when it comes to college. You just throwing money. I don't care how much the college costs. We pay for all college, everybody. Everybody college paid for. How much that going to cost? We don't care about the money. But when it comes to us, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money you're talking about. That's a lot of cash. That's a lot of jing, jing, jangle in the pocket. And you have to before you figure out what you're going to do, or what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it. Before we figure any of that out, we got to figure out who we are, not just who we are as a group. Part of reading and what we're doing is figuring out who we are as a group of people, as ADOS. The other part of that, though, is figuring out what we mean to politics, and what we mean to politicians, and what we mean to parties. And I think this shows that people are very insincere when they say what they say to us about reparations. No, it doesn't mean that you don't want to pay. You just don't want to pay us. It doesn't mean that you don't want to chase votes. You just don't want to chase us. Doesn't make any sense. Because you get to play around with that. You get to play around with fire all the time and not get burned. You do good things with compelling content, but then you add that other little stuff in. That's what keeps people kind of giggling. And yeah, I like him because he's honest. I like him. Like he said, Joe Rogan, I like right-wing media because they take chances. You just give people excuses to like stuff that shouldn't be liked. And you say, and people say, that's why I like it too. No, that ain't why you like it. Well, I like Alex Jones, but he don't really care about the mainstream. He just say what he mean. Nah, you 10-4, but you be 10-4 hatting too. And I don't think we understand, and even us in terms of what we've been through in the past few weeks, it's really hard to compete with people who can just say anything. And you can say anything one day and say something else the next day. If you can say something one day and then say the total opposite the next day, and then just say wild stuff that bears no truth one day, and then one day you really having a serious interview with somebody, and then the next day you just talking trash or whatever, it's hard to compete as a serious person with people who can be all over the place. Like, it's almost if, like, when you look at Joe Rogan, like, whiteness is being everything and nothing at the same time. You get to be this person who has all these really good thought leaders on your show, but then you get to go and talk Alex Jones. And so how do you even be the person who interviews like you know, Alex Jones and Malcolm Gladwell, like somebody who's well studied and somebody who is just a conspiratorialist? How that just flattens the conversation and puts them both on the same level, and that's kind of what you get to do. I would never get to do that. I would never get to do that. I would never get to be everywhere and then have 1 million downloads or whatever a month. But you get to just be everything and nothing all at the same time. You get to be in a place where, like, racism matters, but really it matters kind of only in theory, right? So racism matters, but you're going to use it as content, but you are never going to, like, implore your people to think differently about it, or your listeners to do something, necessarily about it, as opposed to just individual. But it's not an individual problem. It is a systemic problem, but you'll have the conversation and say, yeah, the officer did X, Y, and Z, but that's where you'll leave it. And that's where you get to leave it, because that's what whiteness does. Whiteness gets to be unserious in a way that I never could, and you never could, none of us could. And that's kind of the problem that we run into. This kind of how we have, like, the Joe Rogans of the world who can walk up to the line, but they don't ever have to cross it. And we have to cross that line every day when we get up. They get to walk up to that line and not cross it. Yeah, that officer was awful. What he did was wrong. And that's the end of it, though. You don't have to go beyond that and be like, what do we do? What has to happen? How do I use my listeners to make that happen? There's no responsibility. You're just able to just have the conversation. And everybody can do what they want to with the conversation. And we have to live the consequence of you not having to do anything, and you being able to be lazy in the way that you're able to be lazy and just kind of talk. We live that laziness every day. That is what it is. And Bernie will go and chase that laziness and won't anchor himself in what he needs to do in order to get the black vote. That's where we are. And that's the problem I have with Joe Rogan. I don't accuse him of anything. I don't know the man. Never met the man. I don't know what's in his heart or whatever he do. I just know the problem I have with the people who do very serious things and very serious conversations and then go and do the other thing. And the serious stuff is supposed to cover the other stuff. It's a problem. There should be a cost to, like, being around Alex Jones that long. And talking about, well, he ain't mean it that way. He know how he is. He gets hot-headed. And I've been trying to tell him a long time. I've been trying to talk to him. See, I'm the good guy. I'm trying to tell him he ain't right. And there also needs to be a consequence, right? We've been trying to talk to people since Reconstruction. But there also should be a consequence to... I kind of feel like, and this is as somebody who has listened to a few Joe Rogan episodes, and before today, I kind of feel that there should, because this is the person who opened the door back up. Remember Sam Harris talking about black people biologically not as smart or whatever, that whole thing. Biological racism. There should be some kind of consequence. Now remember, Ezra Klein debated Sam Harris. I think he did, if I remember correctly. but you're co-signing Bernie Sanders getting an endorsement from the man who gave Harris a platform, right? So I kind of feel like there should be and I think I'll probably end on this in a second. There has to be a consequence, or at least there should be a consequence, to people who leave the door open to good and bad ideas. There's some ideas that we know now don't hold any water. The idea of race in terms of your melanin hair texture, my being a kind of determinant to IQ, we know that's BS. We know what that was built for, what it was meant for, to legitimize our oppression. Opening the door to that as a serious conversation to 1 million plus people a month, or whatever your download is, there should be a consequence to that. And instead of there being a consequence to that, you get rewarded with all of the Democrats chasing your endorsement. And then there's an expectation that black people should go and vote for the people, go and vote for the candidate who just chased the endorsement of somebody who kind of put bad ideas and good ideas on the same level. All under the auspices of this is the market of ideas. No, we know some ideas are wrong and they work as an oppressive force to us because people can legitimize treating us badly and how the system oppresses us because of those ideas. You don't get to do that. You shouldn't get to do that without some kind of consequence in terms of your listeners, in terms of what mainstream politicians will do and how they will seek you. You should not. But you do. And the question for us becomes then, what will be our reaction to those politicians? Because they decided that we don't matter. Basically, that's what it looks like to me. You can tell me if I'm wrong. But how do we react to that? And I think that we can't react the same way. That's why I said Democrat down ballot. Because I don't think we can react the same way we used to. Whereas, yeah, you go do it. We might disagree, but we're still going to vote for you. No matter what. We're still going to put a Democrat in the White House. Because when people overlook you and treat you badly, they tend to continue doing that. When they put you at the bottom of the party, even though you're the soul and the heart of the party, then they probably going to keep doing that. So then it becomes your job to decide how are we going to react differently to what has been habitually done to us? That is the only question we got to answer. Because everybody else going to be okay. Bernie going to be okay. Joe Rogan's a millionaire. Everybody else going to be okay. We not okay. And how we react to not being okay, politically and otherwise, is going to be the question of our lifetime as far as I'm concerned. So give me a few minutes, family, to set up the phones. I want to hear what everybody has to say. And if you, especially if you are a listener of the show, that Joe Rogan show or whatever, please feel free to call in and just share your nuggets of information. And you may have a different view or whatever. Let's talk it out, hash it out, and all that good stuff. Give me a few minutes to set up the phones as usual, and we'll be back. All right, fam. I am going to the calls. I am going to the calls. Let me make sure of one thing, please. I knew it. All right, fam. I'm going to my first call. First call. I'm going to 240. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello, Yvette. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
I'm just calling in today because I wanted to say thank you for having your show and thank you for calling out Bernard because, the Bernie gang seems to have all the money in the world for climate change, climate justice. They got the money in the world to do the Green New Deal from the Green Party of 2016 to forgive student debt. And they seem to got a lot of money for $59 trillion for Medicare for all, but when it comes time for black folks to pay a debt that's been owed since the Civil War, all of a sudden they don't know nobody.
All of a sudden they broke.
They don't got their pocketbook.
They broke. Huh? They broke. They got lint in their pocket in the time for us.
Right? Nowhere. You just think somebody ran up and robbed them. All of a sudden we don't do quantitative easing no more. All of a sudden we don't know how to do all of a sudden we don't know how to pay back debts. But no. So I called in because I wanted to tell everybody in the DMV area that the ADOS DMV chapter is going to be having our meeting on February 1st. It's going to be this Saturday. So if they haven't already hit up the ADOS DMV page, please do that. We'll send out some emails to people. So come on out, do our membership and everything, and come on out for the group. That was just it. That was my comment. Y'all have a wonderful night.
You have a wonderful night too, fam. You have a wonderful night too, and make sure you put that in the chat as well. How to reach you in the chat. I know you said the page, but if people have questions or concerns or whatever. Appreciate it, fam. Yeah, everybody got a lot of money except when no. Ain't nobody in favor. And see, the thing is, let me just say this too. I said this before. I want to just reiterate it. The job of a good politician is not being a weather vane. Like, a good politician's job is not just to take the pulse, see which way the wind is blowing, and go that way. The job is to convince people. So if you're saying, like, I know this is right in terms of reparations or whatever, but I don't think people are going to go for it. Your job is to, like, okay, I'm gonna make this a part of my package. And even if the price tag per year, because you still have to have a price tag of what we talked about in terms of any 10, 12 trillion, whatever. I'm going to stagger it in such a way. And we're going to have to convince people. And you're going to have to work on your people and getting me historic turnout to make up for some people I might lose. We're going to have to figure this whole thing out. But the idea of, like, saying, and you can't even say, well, it just costs too much. That's what's so offensive. That's what moderate Democrats used to tell us all the time. Regular Democrats, it's just too expensive. And it was still wrong because the debt's still owed. But it's easier to say that when you're not spending big money on anything. Like when moderate Democrats aren't really trying to do Medicare for all. You didn't see Hillary Clinton or even Barack Obama. Like Barack Obama was center. You didn't see him trying to do anything. Now that's he didn't even agree with a public option, much less anything else. So it doesn't. What I'm saying is that it's still wrong when they disagree with it because the debt is owed. The debt is the debt. But to see people who are just throwing money, to see candidates on the left who are just throwing money out, and for them to say, like, reparations is really the only thing they're saying no to. They're saying yes to everything else, regardless of price tag. So you can't even really make it make sense. So going to the next call, family. Going to the next call. I am going to going to 913. 913. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, it's Joe from Kansas City. That's funny. I knew I was going to be up next. I'm always like the second or third call. I missed the first half of the show. I'm not really sure, but I caught the Joe Rogan part.
That's the whole show.
And, it's funny. I didn't really. Okay, so it's interesting that you say. Well, you framed it that way, that he can just be anything that he wants. He can be, a millionaire. He can be, tinfoil hat guy. He can be right wing. He can be a gun activist. He can be literally anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, you and Tone, y'all can't say anything. Y'all have to be one thing. They get to be everything. You get to be one thing. And Bernie Sanders is around chasing this man, and we around trying to get him to agree with something that he clearly don't agree with. And I get into it with your former co-host about it all the time.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you just got to realize that, you know what, I'm going to frame it this way. This is the same thing that we had with Obama. All these, well, it's going to be good for us. First, we got to get him in there, and then we got to do X, Y, and Z things. Like, no, he says who he is off top, off jump. Just believe him. Just believe him. I seen some young lady put something on Twitter about, like, his record with civil rights. And it was just like she started with when he was supposedly marching with King, and then all the way down to today, there was nothing about civil rights, about people of color or black people or the ADOS or whomever. It was nothing. So he is who we think he is. Don't try to make him out to be somebody else. You're not gonna change that man. It's like a woman who or a man with a bad spouse. He is who he say he is. He ain't gonna change. Because he ain't show no proof. This man, 90-something years old, he did nothing.
80, 70? What is it? But you know what it is? You know what it is to me, Carla, honestly? Like, the argument, and I listen to all the argument in favor of Bernie Sanders. And the thing is, like, when it was Bernie against Hillary, I was like, well, Bernie's better than Hillary. But at a certain point, after you and after ADOS, you realize that, like, this kind of incrementalism doesn't work. And here's why. People will say, well, black people are going to be poor. So whatever we need, whatever they can give us, because we're always going to be the bottom. So what happens is you'll create a situation where, let's say Bernie gets elected, and let's say black people are making $15 an hour now, and they have more jobs. You're still looking at a situation where you're making like $17,000 a year. Now that's certainly better than if you're unemployed, and it's certainly better if you have a job guarantee or something. But it's just like none of that. First of all, none of that is like, is that what you want to look forward to? But second of all, none of that is like, that doesn't make us whole. There was an article where, and I think Antonio did a video about this family, and one of the things they brought up is just like Japanese got payments, like reparations, like $20,000 or whatever it was for like 3 years. And shout out to Kremlin. I think she put that article because she sent it to me. And we got nothing still. And I just don't understand, like, what is the math for that? Like, we should be arguing over the number. We shouldn't be arguing over, like, are you going to pay it? How long are y'all going to put this off?
Right, and I think that's when you say incrementalism or whatever, something like that. It's like saying I had 5 fingers is better than no fingers, but we're supposed to have 10 fingers.
Exactly.
So I need both hands. If you want me to navigate through life, I need both hands to do it, adequately.
Yeah, and not only do I need both hands, like, you took them. Like, it's not like I just lost my fingers. Like, no, you took them and you're like, well, listen, let's negotiate this thing out. No, what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, there is no. I wanted to be a Bernie person because you want a shot, but one thing I will disagree with you on is the Democratic Party is not the party of black people. I think it was Chris Hayden or somebody else. They were saying it's the party of Wall Street.
Well, no, I agree. But Wall Street rides on the wings of Negroes. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like it's our party. It's our party in the sense of, like, we always sold to the polls and we show up. And there are a lot of reasons to vote. Like I talk about in terms of referendums, a lot of stuff that don't even do with the party. No. I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is that our contribution to the Democratic Party should have been an exchange. We keep giving to the party in terms of putting the president in the White House. And at a certain point, you have to ask, what is that exchange? Now, I do agree with what you're saying in terms of, we saw that in terms of Obama, and Wall Street didn't even get in trouble. Wall Street got to walk, even though they targeted us with subprime mortgages and all kind of scams and schemes. Our first black president didn't do a doggone thing. And his black attorney general or holder didn't hold him accountable. So I definitely agree with you. I'm just saying, like, only thing I'm saying when I say the party of it's black people in terms of, like, our contribution of showing up and being loyal Democrats. Like, what is the exchange for that? Just I'm going to fight for the Voting Rights Act. It's got to be bigger than that. It's got to be bolder than that.
No, it's a fact. And I guess the last thing I'll say, bring it back to the original point and a point you made before. You know, the Democratic Party is chasing around white people. That's what the whole Joe Rogan thing is. Just chasing them around, just trying to pull them in. We get ignored, they chase them around. It's like a girl who don't want you. You're just chasing them around. Somebody there who's been there for you the whole time, and you just ignore them, and you constantly chasing around these people who, you know.
And the girl will tell you. The girl will tell you, well, after you chase her around for a year, I might go out with you Saturday if I feel like it. We'll see. You know what I mean? It's just like,
right.
And you there to what is this? So yeah, I appreciate it. Let you have the last word, Carl.
No, that's pretty much it. You know, I'm a team player. I'm on the board. So, you know, keep doing what you're doing and don't let these people get you down, man.
Oh, I'm not down. I'm not down. All right. Appreciate you, fam. Appreciate you.
No problem. Good night.
Right. I'm going to the next caller. I am going to, who shall I go? I'm going to 301. 301, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello, Yvette.
Hey.
Hey, this is Morgan from Staten Island by way of Prince George's County, Maryland.
Okay.
It's good to be back. I haven't called in quite a few months.
Okay.
I want to make a point about what our future is considering.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Staten Island now in a luxury apartment complex with a lot of bells and whistles. It's a very nice place.
Oh.
But I'm here on a subsidy. And the type of subsidy I'm here on is a subsidy for people who have the HIV virus or who has, the disease has progressed to AIDS.
Okay.
Fortunately for me, it did that back in the 1990s, and I'm very healthy now.
Okay.
But keep these three numbers in mind.
Okay.
The first time was 38. The second time was 35. And this summer, it was 22. Those are the ages of 3 men who asked me to infect them with the HIV virus so that they could have a stable place to live, an apartment to live in. Now, when you get a 22-year-old considering that and only seeing that as a realistic option for him to have a place of his own, a home of his own, and a very nice place, I must say, a very nice place. But when we're at a place that we're considering an option like that, that's very scary.
And they were black. These were black people who were saying like I need a space, or were these people with different colors or whatever, the men?
I'm sorry?
I said, were they black men or were they just men of different colors?
Oh, they were black. They were black.
Okay.
They were black. One of the things about living in New York City, even though it's a quote-unquote melting pot, we're segregated. We're very segregated here.
Okay.
But I'm living very, very well. And I'm living in an apartment that I could not afford. And I have a master's degree.
Okay.
I can't afford this apartment on what they pay me.
Okay.
I make $48 a year. This apartment is $2,200 a month. I can't afford that on $48,000 a salary.
Yeah.
And I'm in a studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm loving this apartment. I think I'll never leave it. But when people come to visit me, they're very impressed, and they can't really see themselves getting here without some type of subsidy. But it's.
I read an article. I think it was a few years ago about. Gosh, I wish I could remember better. But it was about different strains of HIV, and men who were wanting to be infected with HIV, kind of like what you just said, as a way to have a stable life, Right. Some of them were homeless. Some
Right.
of them were on the street. Some of them were moving from place to place. It was just very, very unstable. And they were saying that like there are different varieties of the virus, and people want to pick and choose like which ones, and then because then they get care and help. And I think that gosh, I wish I could remember which article that was, but it kind of aligned with what you just said. Um, I think we have to ask what kind of life or what kind of country, especially in the richest country in the world, are we living in and living through that becomes an option to make yourself less healthy in a major way, so that you can have a decent place to live, wherever you are. In this case, it's New York, but I understand what you're saying.
Right. And just to give you some good news, though, I got hired for a job, because I was always, every time I called, I was complaining about not being employed. But I'm hired for a job, and I'm working in a shelter in New York City, and it's overwhelmingly ADOS, with a few Latinos and one or two white people, but just dramatically, overwhelmingly black. And it's kind of a mission of mine to do as much as I can politically on an ADOS level, but I do as much as I can to mental health wise for us, because you have fathers and sons. I'm in a men's shelter, so you have fathers and sons that are in the shelter system, and we really gotta understand this is much more serious than what we're even perceiving it to be. With that,
Yeah.
I'll keep listening to you, and
Thanks,
I'll
fam.
finally be able to start giving you some money.
Well, take your time, fam. Take your time. Take care of yourself and save up some money, because you know
Heck
this
yeah.
life and these jobs ain't promised. So I wish you all the best. I wish you well. I got you. I want the best for everybody who watches the show and calls in. But like, take your time and take it step by step. But you're making a contribution in terms of what you're doing right now in terms of the shelter. So I think that is appreciated as well. But yeah, that was call. That was a call. Like, whew.
And I love you, family. Bye.
Love you back, fam. I appreciate it. And let me just say this, like, I think, I remember reading something about that, and I I couldn't believe it when I read it. And not to. So I know that like it's a thing. Like, people seek out stability in terms of whatever that means. Like, you got people. I've never been in that situation. A lot of you haven't, like, in terms of like, okay, I'm gonna do this. But I think you have to, like, what if you've been on the street and whatever happens on the street, you saw Antonio put up the data about the number of the percentage of the homeless who are black. Like, I don't know what happens out there that will make you say, like, anything except here. I'll do anything except what I have been going through out there. I can't call it because I haven't by the grace of God, had to make that choice. But I think we are, we said a while ago that ADOS we're going over a cliff. Like, and I think what we're starting to see in a very real way are the manifestations of the people who are going over the cliff first. And you don't fix going over a cliff with incremental politics. That's not how you fix the fall. Right? That's not how you no. You don't do that by, like, I got one net. It's a cliff, I got a net. No, that's not how we do it. And that's what we have to fix and figure out. So fam, let me get to the next call. I'll just be talking and talking and talking. Let me see who I am going to go to next. Let me go to 267. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette, how you doing? This is
Pretty
Mercedes.
good.
I'm calling from Philly.
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Just finished a half a bowl of these pinto beans I made in my Instant Pot, and I'm feeling good. And, I just wanted to call, more or less for a pep rally, but some things have come up since I've been waiting that I wanted to speak on as well.
Okay.
But the very last thing that you said before you started to take the calls on that article, it was asking whether or not ADOS should be at this point drawing a hard line, kind of like in the sand, and shutting off people that are just not willing to understand, or that are, well, somehow remaining in denial about what our justice claim is. And I personally, kind of want to make the case to everybody out here listening that we do. I don't know necessarily we should be drawing a hard line, but it should be firming up at this point because we're approaching the election. The other thing I wanted to say was we've done great work. You've done, of course, you and Tony has done awesome work over the past few years here, but we are approaching the election, and I just want to keep everybody encouraged and say to everyone, we've made a lot of noise. We've done, so much. We've done something that's historic and unprecedented, and our presence has to be felt when this election comes. And we can't we can't do all that has been done and then and not make an impact in this election. So I just want to keep everybody encouraged about that. And the final thing I wanted to say is I want to get an opportunity to send you some of these podcasts I've been listening to. I just got into that recently, and I was just listening to one today about gentrification. And just to make it short, because I don't want to drag this call out, but I've just learned about how these landlords are actually working in conjunction with the city to move low-income people out of their homes. If they're not able to make rent, or if the landlords are not able to fix up the places and charge higher rent, they're opting to evict everybody, demolish, and just rebuild. And how the cities are acting like they're not with it, or they're not, they don't approve of it, but secretly they do, because ultimately it means a boost for them in terms of how much they can charge on property taxes. I know this kind of like a drift off of what we're talking about tonight, but it's just something I wanted to share.
Okay.
Other than that, I just want to keep everybody encouraged.
All right, thank you, fam. I appreciate it.
And encourage you to keep doing the good work.
Thank you. I think we have to end. See, I appreciate it, caller, because I think what the caller is saying too is like the black community is real good about talking tough before the election. Well, I tell you what, and I tell you this, and I tell you that. And like, I don't want to be somebody to not show up and not vote, because there are a lot of stuff on the ballot. There's a lot of stuff on the ballot. There are a lot of people who to be voted for and against. There are a lot of ballot initiatives, all of that. We talked about that. But you also can't show up and just do what you were told to do. You have to, if you have been, and we have been putting an agenda in front of them, ADOS101.com, from reparations and everything else that we put out in front of them, we have been putting that out, and if people just say, no, you know what, kiss my butt. Like, there has to be a consequence. You don't just be like, well, all right, I don't want Trump in the White House, so I guess I just go along. That's what we've been doing the whole time, and it just hasn't worked. At a certain time, you have to be like, you know what, didn't work. We got to figure something else out. So that's kind of where we are now. I am going now to 770. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello?
Hey, 770. What's going on?
Hey, oh my goodness, I can't believe I got through. Okay, my name is Helen. I live in Minneapolis, and I'm just a really big fan of your show. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
Appreciate it.
And thank you and Antonio for everything that you do. So I had two questions. One is, do you know if there is a group in Minneapolis, an ADOS group in Minneapolis? Because I definitely would like to link up with others if they're in the area.
I do not, but make sure you put your Twitter handle or however you can be reached in the chat, and if there is, they'll know.
Okay. And the other thing is, and I think I might have missed some of it while I was trying to call in, but the other thing is I think a lot of people are afraid, because I know what Bernie seems to be offering seems so much in comparison to what we've been offered from some of these other, quote-unquote Democratic candidates. And so I think there's a fear, at least on my side, there's kind of a fear that if he loses, the Democratic establishment will say, see, it didn't work. These big government policies, they don't work. If no one's going for it. And I feel that the reaction to the loss may be even more conservative, neoliberal policies. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that you can look at the Sanders run as a kind of push towards a mentality of government offering programs that gets us closer to the goal?
Well, see, here's part of the issue, right? I think there will be many interpretations if Sanders loses or whatever, or I think there will be a lot of different interpretations. But I think people need to be careful about saying that. Well, the interpretation should be that nobody wants to see a bigger government, because there's also a candidate here. I mean, we don't even think about that. There's a candidate here who had a heart attack, all kinds of stuff. There are a lot of reasons. If Bernie doesn't win, there's a lot of reasons why he didn't make it over. Like you can't just say, well, people just don't want to see government get bigger. That's just what it is. No, it could be the candidate. It could be the way he managed his campaign. It could be the way he was kind of dismissive of the black community. There are a lot of reasons why Bernie might not make it that have nothing to do with whether or not people like bigger government policies. Because even with bigger government policies, you have to be careful about how you prioritize those, right? And you have to be very careful about how you give priority. Everybody's always like, even when Bernie talks, even when you see him debate, people say, well, how are you going to do this? How are you going to implement it? And he always kind of reverts back to, this has to happen and other countries do it too. Well, I agree on some level in terms of we should have health care and we should improve quality of life. Not before reparations. I prioritize reparations first because that's a debt that's owed. But even on the other stuff after reparations, like, he doesn't seem to me to get into the grit of like how this thing works, right? Whereas Elizabeth Warren does do that, but then Elizabeth Warren, she is, to me, much more of a centrist who's kind of like trying to co-opt Bernie's people as opposed to like be a true leftist. So I always kind of miss a level of seriousness when I watch Bernie. Like I feel like he's still stuck on like talking points and talking about why things need to happen as opposed to like how you do this legislatively. And I think that goes to the fact that he hasn't gotten a lot done legislatively while he was in Congress. I think that goes to that. You haven't done a lot of like, this is how you do the hard work of the thing. And I think people would like to see more of that. The people who are inclined to support him, not me, but the people who are inclined to support him. But I don't think if Bernie doesn't make it, that's necessarily a condemnation of growing government to improve the quality of life. I think that would be like, yeah, we like Bernie's ideas, but we're still not keen on like him being the vessel to implement those ideas. So I think people need to be careful about that. Like Bernie isn't just he did. I honestly think Bernie did his job last time in terms of making a case for things, but I don't see how he has kind of improved himself this go round. And I certainly don't see it in terms of reparations, in terms of what we want to see from him.
Right.
So that's just my thought.
No, most definitely. And I mean, I live in a progressive state, so I live in a state that has kind of implemented some of the things that he's talking about, even on like a lower level, and the disparities here are great. So I know there's a lot of problems with just the class-based approach. But I guess I'm just wondering, is this kind of the long game then when you say voting down ballot? Is it just mainly to show that we're willing to make these politicians pay, for lack of a better phrase?
I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it, right? But when you see when you see the percentage of ADOS who are homeless, when you see what the caller was just talking about in terms of HIV, when you see how we're living, I don't really think we have much of a choice. Like if we were asking for reparations, but we were doing okay, like middle black family worth $100,000, and that's still not any. That's in America. That's still not. We still not talking a lot. Okay, we live in nice neighborhoods, but we still have a debt that was owed that was never paid. I think then you can say, listen, you all are living majoritively pretty good, pretty okay. It's not good to have $100K, but you're not suffering. Like when you see the level of suffering and people who are like suffering from becoming mentally ill because of the pressures of life, when you see the wealth levels and when you see what is happening to us, I think then you have to say, like, we don't have a choice. Like, this is something that we really want to do. We don't have a choice but to bring our ticket in and say, okay, cash this out. We don't have another choice. I don't think we have a choice. I think we're going over a very, very cliff. And I don't think there's any coming back from that cliff. You can only not go over the cliff. That's what you can do. You can't, once you go over the cliff, I don't know what you do after that point.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to keep watching, of course, and I'm going to be donating. So
appreciate it. Thank you, fam. I appreciate you calling in. I think you know what I think, and I appreciate the call for asking that question, because I think some political people say that. Like you'll hear black political people say, well, you know, what are we going to do? We're going to do that. And that's not smart. It's just like you kind of want to ask them, do you know how like regular ADOS people are living right now? Do you know how people are piled into one house? And do you know how people are trying to stretch dollars? And do you know how many of us are homeless and living in homeless encampments? Do you have any idea of the incarceration? Have you seen what's going on in Parchment? Like, if you see that and you know that to be true, I don't see how you could say that we have a choice. We have tried to do it the other way for a very long time. We tried to just like go along and put a Democrat in the White House and in hopes that that person is going to do right by us. But then what you find is that they just go and pull a Bill Clinton, right? Where you go and you do welfare reform, you do a bunch of incarceration stuff, you do all of that stuff, even though we're the ones who brought you. We're the ones who, called you to, first, like, we did all that for you. And then, like, what has been the exchange? And so you put us in a situation where we end up having to do something that we wouldn't want to do. And we never did do. But how long are we supposed to just do that? And we can't do that anymore. You can't live in America anymore with a wealth level of being worth $1,700. You can't be here anymore. Everything costs too much to be here at that wealth level. So what you're faced is that you have the need now for transformative politics. The piecemeal stuff didn't work, and it ain't gonna work. That's where we are. So I'm going to the next caller. I am going to 919. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, this is Carrie Redbone. How you doing, Yvette?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Good. I wanted to call because I have some good news, and I have something to ask you, and you can't say no. But the Tom Steyer campaign has requested your presence and Tone's, definitely you, at their reparations forum on the 26th of February in Charleston, South Carolina. 6 to 8 p.m.
I am traveling from the 17th through the 27th.
So that means you're going to cancel?
I never committed. I can't cancel something I never committed to.
Well, that's the request. They'd like you to come and be one of the panelists at the reparations forum. So hopefully you can make it.
We'll see.
And I sent you some DMs, and so I can give you more information. And the other thing was a prayer breakfast on the 22nd, also in Charleston. So that's all I wanted to say, except love you, love Tone, love my ADOS fam. Everybody stay strong. I think we'll have some good news coming down the pike. And with that, talk to everybody later.
All right. And the thing is, like, well, we're going to talk about the Tom Steyer thing too, because it's very interesting. Like, somebody told me that, like, he was polling at number 2 or something. Like, not in general. Not in general. But like, what state was that he put a bunch of money into? That was very, 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 very. That was very, 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 very interesting. But I'll check my DMs and we'll see what we can do. I'll check the DMs and we'll see what we can do. Yeah, but I thought I told you I was traveling that. I don't even know. But I'll check my DMs. We can see what we can do. All right, let's go to the next caller. Let's see, who are we going to? 917, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Yvette to the call now. What it is?
What's going on, family? How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's Divine from Brooklyn. We in the building. Oh man, I feel like I haven't spoken to you in months.
Hey, it's been a minute. But not that long. I think it was like, what was it like? I thought it was like early January or something, wasn't it? Something, I don't know.
yeah, that's why I said it feels like it really ain't been that long.
Okay.
Yeah? Work had me busy on the night of the show, so I was a little MIA for a little bit.
Ah, gotcha. Gotta do that though. I understand.
You know, ADOS life. You know how that works. And to answer your rhetorical question, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Tom Steyer was polling number 2 in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. But a couple things about the topic, what we're talking about with Bernie, and it's very interesting how they characterize it as a mismatch of political views.
Yeah, a mismatch.
Right. It's a mismatch. So you could be on either side of the line when you are Joe Rogan and when you playing footsie with possible white supremacists and stuff. But Bernie, when you ask about reparations for ADOS, he don't know what that is. So he can make sense of mismatch, but he don't know what reparations for ADOS is.
Yeah. He can make sense of the mishmash.
Right, but he don't know what reparations is when it's for ADOS. And
exactly.
What's interesting is that him and his surrogates, they always talking about how he marched with King. So my question for Nina Turner, for Killer Mike, and his other surrogates that parrot that same talking point is, if he marched with King, I need to know what street he turned off on.
Uh-oh.
Because he didn't go all the way. Because if he went all the way, he would definitely know what reparations are when it comes to ADOS, because that's what King was fighting for.
Don't nobody want to talk about that King, though.
Oh, no. Nobody want to talk about that King. Nobody want to talk about it. Matter of fact, it's funny, and I want to thank you personally for the book club. The book club is so powerful because it's something that we need to know ourselves, but we never really know when we're going to be able to apply it in the real world, but we will always be able to apply it. And so I got a chance to speak at we were doing a community advocacy meeting on Martin Luther King Day on a Monday, and because of the book, I know we're not really feeling Jay-Z right now, but I was able to have them allow me to reintroduce myself. You know what I'm saying? I was the real King that they wasn't ready to hear. And it's funny because there was she was a minister. It was a Hispanic minister in the audience.
Okay.
And she was talking about we overcame and King this and King fighting for everybody. And I had to let her know, from where do we go from here, Chaos Community, that, King's first, his first priority was to the American descendants of slavery. And that's who we are. So that was his focus. And everybody else that we were trying to help and that we will advocate for once, they've shown themselves to be an ally, or just that. Those are allies. Those were not his first priorities, because at that time there was really no huge boom as far as black immigrants are concerned, and we hadn't gotten our due yet that he knew that we would do.
Yeah, the thing is though, you never know when you're going to get to use what you learn. You know what I mean? Like if you don't know any better, and you be like, yeah, I guess he did. He even the move towards allies was just to it's his idea was I need leverage. This has to be a movement of a bunch of people. It was a tactic, you see. You know what I mean? And he's a minister, and this is a tactic. So that's what you see. And he talks about us specifically though. Who doesn't this idea that it wasn't about the Negroes, it was just everybody. It's just no, it wasn't everybody's thing. Like he moved in the direction of trying to help, of course, poor people. He felt like if I incorporate this into that, then we can do it and we can move in a general direction. But I just don't understand the people who try to just like whitewash King into like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you know the information, then you can kind of cut that off. You can kind of, you can be in the forefront of it. So that's important.
You ain't listen. We already know men lie, women lie, even some kids lie, but the number and the data don't.
Kids lie.
So they wasn't ready. They wasn't ready. But listen, that wasn't my problem. You know what I'm saying? We got an advocacy job to do. It's for us, and I like I said, I really appreciate the knowledge and the data that you're bringing. I also want to just take this time to shout out New York City ADOS. We here and we coming. We have a general body meeting on Wednesday. And we are in the process of putting some care packages together because we about to do some outreach to those same homeless people that are majority of ADOS in our city. So we're looking to do work with that as well. And, we just here doing the work. And I can't forget to shout out Miss Minister Phyllis Coachman. She had us in a room full of white allies. And, there was an environmental and information session on reparations. And she did her thing. She spoke loudly, boldly, and unapologetically, even though there was other people in the room. There was also a Native American talking about their plight, but she didn't back down. She just brought the heat.
Okay.
And, I wanted to make sure I shouted her out. And lastly, I want to say, I ain't going to hold the line. I know I'm going too far. I missed you. That's all this means. I missed you. Last thing I want to say is, they could go for whoever they want. We know what we're doing. We got Operation Down Bell. We got Operation Takeover. And the good thing about it is if Bernie and them want to play footsie with Joe Rogan and try to go in there and court that vote, I feel like I got to do my tone impersonation, and I wish you could, bring up some charts that I want to quote. But, they need to look at the white vote and how Democrats haven't won it for years. And we also need to see the white vote for who voted for Trump. So they can chase those voters if they want. And they can go get Joe Rogan because the bottom line is the fear factor of Trump ain't working on black folks this election cycle. So that's it.
Yep, you're right, fam. You said a word today. I appreciate it. I sure do appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know what everybody's just doing their own. Oh, it's a wild time. It's a wild time to be involved in politics, ain't it? It's a wild time. Ooh. I'm gonna take maybe one or two more calls before we end today. I'm going now to 702. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? Ooh.
Hey man, I'm calling from Las Vegas. Thank you for having me on.
No problem.
Two quickie points.
Okay.
First of all, I'm in the gym and I'm listening while I'm watching television. As you know, of course, the sound is turned off. But they got screens playing and everything. And so there was a sports channel, and they're showing LeBron James. This is like 2 days ago. They're showing LeBron James. He's getting ready for a game, and up walks mass incarceration Bill Clinton, who you could see in his eyes he had found himself a useful Negro who doesn't have a full grasp of history, and so he's up there shaking hands with him, and then they take a picture, and then of course later in the afternoon LeBron tweets something to the effect of Bill Clinton, first black, our first black president, whatever, allies forever, buddies forever, something like that. It was very laudatory and congratulatory to Bill Clinton, and so the point being that it hasn't sunk in. It hasn't sunk in with the Democrats yet. Obviously, since they're sending sending their classics out to rally the black vote. That we're not listening to celebrities anymore. Celebrities are useless and will not be dictating black political thought this cycle or any cycle henceforth. In fact, they're a contagion that has to be cordoned off because they'll do something like what LeBron James did. And I mean, all due respect to LeBron, but no, don't you're not woke, and you basically just you basically got used by a man who probably sent a lot of your friends when you were a kid off to prison unnecessarily, and has basically triggered the slow genocide of our people in your lifetime. So, think about who's walking up to you, especially if they're Democrats, and especially if you're a celebrity. No, you don't have any pull on this, and you shouldn't even think that you do. And the other quick thing is that, by the way, feel free to ignore the Steyer, whatever luncheon this is coming up in February, because he's like any other rich person. They're delivering lowball offers, and they're going to play bait and switch with us. And the bottom line being that Democrats should prepare to wear a big fat L pretty much up and down across the line. Yeah, I'll be going to the voting booth, and I'll be voting on issues. But if you have a D by your name, you should expect that I'll be writing ADOS in to congratulate you on all the good decades that you've done absolutely nothing for me and for mine. And that's kind of it. I appreciate what you do. Oh, one more quick thing.
Sure.
I really appreciate the way that ADOS chapters are forming, not so much under cult of personality. You and Antonio, you deliver knowledge, and you deliver some sort of guidance. But I don't look upon you as in the form of charismatic leaders. We've already had a history of that as Black people, and that's not what we need. What we need is enlightened fellow travelers of sorts, enlightened fellow warriors who are about collective uplift. Because looking for saviors is not. Looking for saviors is clearly not the path, and it hasn't delivered anything for us. And so we're getting away from that, which is good. And the way that ADOS chapters are forming almost organically, in fact, actually organically, is good. And it's telling us good things about where we're headed, and that this is not some monster, or not. I'm not even going to call it a monster. This is not some creature that can be snapped off at the head, because there are several heads, and that's where we are.
Absolutely,
I think that's a wonderful thing, and I appreciate what you again, and the drive that you throw towards it. And that's it. Good night.
Thanks, fam. Yep. I think we came back up. I don't know what goes on with internet sometimes, but fam, that is a good. I don't know if you all heard it buffered, but that is a good point to end the show. He was saying that we don't have charismatic messianic leadership anymore. We have organic leaders. In case you missed that part while it was buffering, and that is a very, 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 very good thing for ADOS in terms of how organic chapters are forming, and it's happening organically. And he was talking about that in case you missed it. But that is a good point to end the show, family. Let me just remind everybody to hit the like button. If you're in there, please hit the like button. I think we are back up. Hit that like button for me. Please don't forget Thursday. Where's the thing at Thursday? Have the Wednesday show, and then Thursday they were her property. That's what we will be having a conversation about. Please, just have your notes ready. I want to get a bunch of calls in, because I know a bunch of people read. I want to hear what everybody got to say. So have your little notes, index card, or whatever you got to do ready, and let's have a conversation about it and hit on certain themes from the book. Hit on certain themes that we might have thought about, and I have a couple, but we'll hash it out. We'll figure it out. So please, family, hit that like button for me. Have a good night. Finish your libation. Hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You can also go to subscribe-to-brown.com. Donate-brown.com if you want to donate. Patreon.com/ycarnell if you want to do that. But hitting that like button costs you no money. Subscribing if you haven't costs you no money. Hitting that bell to get notifications costs you nothing. And that's a wonderful contribution, family. So please, family, as we head to the midnight hour, get yourself in bed. Get yourself rested for another day, and we will talk soon. We got 3 shows this week, so we're going to talk soon, and we're going to have a good time. But until then, finish your libation, whether it's chamomile tea or whatever you're drinking, and go to bed. All right, fam? Talk soon.